Brainwashing. Let's talk about brainwashing.
Oh yeah, me and you were talking about. You were the one who said this to me. You were like, "Do you know?" You were the
Did
one
I?
who said it to me, and you said it to me like this. You were like, "You know how like at Jim Jones' cult down in like Guyana or wherever,
Yeah.
they would like blare messages on the loudspeaker, and then you were supposed to repeat them, or like
Yeah.
in Fight Club, like where it's like, "You are not a special and unique snowflake. You are nothing." The process of being on Bitcoin Twitter is a lot like this. Like there are things you can say and things you can't say. And so over time, you basically just keep repeating the same things that you are allowed to say. Like,
You mean groupthink?
yeah, right. And this is like a sort of self brainwashing that happens. And like you're not really super aware of it. Like this is part of the echo chamber thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like I've always resisted it. I feel the gravity of it sometimes, but I've also tried to resist it.
Sure.
But it exists.
You're still captured by it though. Everybody is.
I think I'm captured by the bullishness of Bitcoin, what it means, but I don't think I'm captured by the political lens that it is seen through by certain people.
Sure. You mean that the Bitcoin Twitter echo chamber is like more right leaning, basically.
I think it can be, yeah.
No, I think it's like an absolute fact that it is. You know what I mean? And I'm right leaning myself, so like I have no problem saying that. You know?
Yeah. I think it's right leaning. I think it's anarchist leaning.
Yeah. Go on Twitter and put up a post that's in defense of vaccines or social welfare or whatever.
I mean, I've done all of those.
Yeah, and you got significant pushback each time you did it, right? Because the echo chamber leans right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that's healthy?
I think it's natural. And in some sense, like I think the filtering mechanism is working as intended, but then in some senses it's a net negative. So it's really tricky to get your head around like, is Bitcoin culture helpful or harmful to Bitcoin? Like, I don't know the answer to that. You know what I mean? And at this point, it runs on its own. Like you're like, I need to go there and I need to push against the culture. I need to do this. I need to do that. Or like Udi was a person who was like really, going hard against the culture for a while there, trying to do echo chamber bursting. And it's just going to get fucking steamrolled. It's like saying, I'm going to fight that tank. The tank is going to win,
No, I think my approach is different to Udi's.
Sure.
I think Udi
yours is softer.
I think Udi is contrarian for the sake of contrarian.
Yes.
And it's more of a troll.
I think Udi believes those things. The trolling is cover.
Jeremy put it away yesterday. He said, what you tend to find in Bitcoin Twitter is that people just close doors. Like they close doors on ideas. They just shut them closed. And I'll come along and I'll reopen it and say, well, can we think about this? Have you thought about this?
I think dogmatism is something that needs to be fought. You know what I mean? Like if you've come to these conclusions like via a rigorous first principles analysis, I think that's great. You know what I mean? But if you came to these conclusions because they were prescribed to you, that's shit. And that needs to get out of Bitcoin culture. Like we need more independent thinkers in Bitcoin, not less. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I'm talking to you in person, like at a conference or something, and I can tell that you're regurgitating talking points to me, I just have like zero respect for you.
And why do you think that happens? Do you think it happens because people want to fit within a certain group? Or do you think it comes back down to that Jonathan Haidt thing whereby like you either have one set of beliefs or you have another set of beliefs? Like conservatives tend to believe a lot of similar things. And, are they doing that to fit within the conservative framework?
No,
or are they doing it because a conservative is a certain mindset?
They're not mindsets. Haidt describes them as moral palettes.
Yeah.
Right. So like liberals have a much narrower moral palette than conservatives do. Conservatives have a much broader moral palette where like purity is something that conservatives are really interested in, whereas liberals have like basically no care about purity at all. Whereas the liberal moral palette is about care harm reduction.
Care harm reduction. Yeah.
So everything is about care harm reduction, and that's why they prioritize the group, right, over the individual, because individuals can harm the group essentially, and so they're always trying to prioritize for the least amount of harm. And the problem is like this is why Stalin or Hillary Clinton I think said this as well. Like, I'm not trying to draw too direct a comparison, but basically that there's a lot of people on the left who are useful idiots because you can use their empathy and their sense of caring against them quite effectively. Whereas it's not true on the right. Now on the right, you can use.
Do you not have a bias there to say that?
No, I'm saying on the right, you can use like sort of appeal to authority much more effectively. The right is always looking for like a strong man to lead them, right? Like that's part of the Trump phenomenon there.
Okay.
So there are different ways you can manipulate different groups, right? The like liberal is somebody who's telling you like there's no room at the top because that guy took your spot from you. Like that guy is the problem. They point at the conservative.
Yeah.
Conservative is a person who's saying like there's room at the top. You can join me. Like you just have to be born like super special like I am, right? And it's like both of them are just trying to manipulate their groups.
But back to my question, do you think they are coming to those conclusions and repeating those talking points because they want to fit in with the group, or do you think it's because of their moral palate?
It's both, right? It's both. Sometimes it's the moral palate, and sometimes it's because they want to fit in with the group. I think you're like a person who probably fits in more with the group than you otherwise would based on your like moral palate, your internal moral palate, right? Like Bitcoin Twitter is not something that you're culturally like, or you weren't very culturally aligned with it, in the beginning. And
no, I mean, I've come more towards it.
You've gotten more culturally aligned with it as time's gone on. I mean, your livelihood is centered around having discussions around Bitcoin. And certainly like if a lot of these ideas lean right, you're going to have to be, more acquiescent to that viewpoint than you otherwise would be.
But I am considered right in the UK.
The UK,
very clear about that.
We view you as a hardcore leftist, like similar to Mao.
Well, I mean, there is the rest of the world is left of the US.
I don't think that's true of like, the Philippines or Africa.
I think it is.
Russia or,
everyone is to the left.
That's not true.
That's
they have pretty significant.
That's a generalization.
They have pretty significant like anti-gay laws in places like Saudi Arabia. You know what I mean? Like
that's very fair.
Yeah.
I mean,
you think Saudi Arabia is left of the?
I mean, I was making a generalization for comedic effect, but now we're having to analyze this. I mean, I can agree with you on that point. But look,
here's my thing. It's like, listen, what I want is not. I don't give a fuck what your political opinions are. I don't care. You know what I mean? What I want is deeply reasoned, thinkers in Bitcoin who have come to their own conclusions, and they didn't come here because this is the right thing to say to get engagement on Twitter. And I think like there's this whole new class of like, Bitcoin Twitter influencers. I'm not going to like signal, I'm not going to signal anybody out, but like, there are a lot of people who don't have a very deep understanding of Bitcoin, and it's become very difficult to get like, but yet they have 100,000 followers on Twitter, and it's become very and it's become very easy to get clout because Bitcoiners want to hear a sermon that sounds something like Bitcoin is the best. You should hodl your Bitcoin.
There'll only be 21 million, and there's 6 million millionaires on the planet.
Bitcoin will bring you big titty bitches and eternal riches. You know what I mean? Like these are the things that Bitcoin.
We'll get back to your responsibility for that.
Bitcoin. There's certain things that Bitcoiners want to hear, and if you tell it to them, they're willing to give you clout for it. Like they're willing to follow you, and they're willing to give you engagement on your posts. And you can turn that clout into maybe money at some point. It's unclear. And so like for me, it's like it used to be a lot easier to get sats than it was to get clout. And most of us didn't want clout anyway. Like we wanted to kind of stay more anon because it was the early days. We didn't know if the government was just going to fucking banhammer us at any moment. Right. So it was like, I'm going to buy this Bitcoin, kind of not talk about it. Right. It's like when weed was illegal versus now that weed's legal. Like people just smoke weed out on the street now. It's like normal.
Don't even want to smoke it now.
You're right. It's not cool anymore. It's not cool anymore. And so I think basically like that's something that people need to be careful of, and like you shouldn't like fuck being like a follower of anybody. You know what I mean? Like who cares what anybody else thinks about anything? Like care about what you think and your own ideas. And maybe that like. And so I said earlier, like only 3% of the population thinks for themselves. And so maybe this is just like inevitable in Bitcoin's adoption and, the rise of Bitcoin, that we're going to have a lot more people who don't think for themselves here than we used to.
Yeah, but I think what's happened is like there's different factions now building.
Yeah, for sure.
There is a hardcore toxic pleb culture, like a faction.
The taco carnivore pleb.
The taco carnivore. You spawned that?
I did not spawn the taco carnivore thing.
You did.
I did not.
We'll come back to that. But there is that. I also think there's like what I would consider a traditional Bitcoiners, like a faction of traditional Bitcoiners. They've been around for a long time.
Like a VJ Boyapati.
No, I'm thinking more like Jimmy Song.
Okay.
Adam Back. Very traditional values. Very focused on the mission of Bitcoin. Haven't changed at all in their views on what Bitcoin should be and where it's going.
Those guys, I mean, those are like technical gods,
And they're going to be around forever,
Of
and they're super
course.
important.
Yeah.
The annoying thing about that is new people coming along not knowing who the fuck they are. Did you see that guy argue with Adam Back? He said, "You must be new around here."
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Dude,
Can you imagine saying that?
I
And someone afterwards is like, "Dude, he was cited in the white paper. Shut the fuck up."
I can't remember who I met, but I met somebody in Miami who had never heard of Pierre Rochard or Michael Goldstein, and I was like, these guys are like the Mount Olympus of Bitcoin meme culture. You know what I mean?
And you need to go and read everything they wrote.
Yeah.
That's like a start. You read the white paper and you go on Nakamoto Institute and
I
you read
was
fucking everything.
I was flabbergasted because to me, somebody like a Pierre or a Michael are like famous. I think of them as famous.
I just think of, for me, it's just how important their work is. When I first got in, reading everything. And it's one of those things I need to go back and do again.
Yeah, for sure.
It's kind of like the Bitcoin Federalist.
Everyone is a scammer is a classic.
Everyone's
Great article.
But also what was a great one was the speculative attack.
Yes.
To foresee that was so good. But I think what happens is they come in, like you come onto Bitcoin Twitter. What are you going to see? You're going to see Michael Saylor, obviously, who's kind of new to Bitcoin, very smart, very interesting. You're going to see some influential kind of people, whether it's people who've got podcasts who write, and a lot of these people have accelerated in growth very quickly. And maybe these people are coming in with the earlier you come to Bitcoin, maybe the more you care about going down that rabbit hole. And I may be generalizing here, but maybe you care more about that deep rabbit hole. And some people come in a little bit looser now, and maybe they don't even read the white paper, or they're not encouraged to read the white paper, or not encouraged to go to Nakamoto Institute. They go to CoinDesk or whatever. They see a Swan Bitcoin talk. They hear what Bitcoin did show, and they just have this very loose connection. And there's no reason them to know or find out these people exist, but they're missing out on very key parts of the education.
I think that's fine too.
It's just
fine.
It's just a different thing. It's almost like it's like you drop a stone in a pond, right? Those big ripples are the center. They're big, and that's where the core is. But as this idea spreads out, it just becomes a little bit flatter, a little bit looser.
Totally. So I feel like I have this feeling towards those guys, the young guys who are coming in now, where it's basically I want them to take the baton. I want them to run with it.
Yeah.
But I also want them to be deep thinkers who are reasoned, who come to their own understanding, who are not having ideas prescribed to them, who are not saying things for engagement farming. You know what I mean? Who are really trying to push this forward. Those guys take the fucking baton and run with it.